Before we begin, let me ask you something that most leaders are never brave enough to face. When danger comes to your door, do you bare your teeth like a lion? Or do you disappear into shadow like a fox? Every age praises strength. Every age fears deception. Yet history rewards those who understand both. This is not a lesson meant to inspire you. It is meant to expose you. Centuries ago, a sharp observer of human nature and power watched rulers rise and fall like seasons. His name was Niccolò Machiavelli. He did not write for heroes. He wrote for survivors. He did not ask what leaders should be. He watched what they were and why they endured or vanished. He saw that power is never kept by goodness alone, nor by cruelty alone, but by knowing when to be feared and when to be unseen. From his quiet observations came a mirror. In that mirror stood two creatures. The lion, strong and feared, who rules through force and presence, and the fox, subtle and alert, who survives through wit and foresight. One breaks enemies, the other avoids traps. Most leaders choose one and despise the other. That is why most leaders fail. In the courts of kings, in councils of cities, and in alliances built on fragile trust, the same question returned again and again. Is it better to confront the world openly, or to move through it unseen? Today, the palaces look different. The crowns are hidden. But the struggle is the same. This is not a tale of the past. It is a test placed quietly in your hands. In the moments ahead, we will walk through 8 truths revealed only to those who watch power closely. 8 lessons drawn from rulers who stood firm, and from those who vanished without resistance. Each one uncovers a different face of leadership. Strength, cunning, mercy, fear, silence, timing. These are not stories meant to comfort you. They are mirrors meant to show you where power breaks and where it survives. By the end of this journey, you will no longer ask whether you are a lion or a fox. You will ask something far more dangerous. When must you become each before the world decides for you? Because what happens next determines whether you lead or are quietly replaced. Number 1. The lion who ruled too openly. In the early days of every kingdom, there is admiration for strength. When a ruler first takes power, people look for a lion. They want a figure who stands tall, who speaks clearly, who punishes openly, who rewards openly. Strength feels like safety. Niccolò Machiavelli, a sharp observer of human nature and power, noticed this pattern again and again. Cities welcome strong rulers the way travelers welcome walls around a city. For a time, the lion is loved, or at least respected. But strength, when always visible, teaches others something dangerous. It teaches them where you stand. It teaches them how you strike. And most of all, it teaches them how to prepare against you. There was once a king who ruled a divided city. The city had factions, old families, quiet rivals, men who smiled in public and whispered at night. When the king arrived, he ruled like a lion. His judgments were swift. His punishments were public. His presence filled every hall. For a season, the city grew calm. Thieves vanished. Plots went silent. The people said, at last, a strong hand. But calm is not loyalty. Silence is not peace. Machiavelli would have seen what the king could not. The lion believed fear was enough. He did not see that fear, when constant, becomes steady. The rivals did not attack him. They observed him. They learned when he grew angry. They learned how he responded to insult. They learned which threats forced his hand. The lion showed his claws too often. In time, the city adapted. The king remained strong, but strength alone had become predictable. And predictability is a gift to your enemies. In modern life, this lion still walks among us. He is the leader who announces every decision, the manager who corrects every mistake in public, the person who believes authority must always be displayed to be respected. At first, people obey. Later, they adjust. They stop challenging openly. They stop resisting directly. They begin working around the leader instead of with him. Machiavelli understood a harsh truth. Power that is always visible is power that can be measured. And what can be measured can be tested. The lion's mistake is not strength. Strength is necessary. The mistake is believing strength alone sustains rule. There is another danger the lion often misses. When you rule only through force, you create a single point of failure: yourself. If you must always be present for order to exist, then order does not truly exist. It is merely waiting for your absence. In the city of the king, order lived only in his shadow. When he traveled, unrest followed. When he fell ill, rumors grew. When he hesitated once, just once, the city felt it. The lion had taught everyone one lesson: everything depends on me. And that lesson invited his removal. In councils and courts, Machiavelli observed that rulers who relied only on strength often fell not to rebellion, but to exhaustion. They fought every battle personally. They answered every challenge directly. Over time, their power thinned, like a sword sharpened too often. Modern leaders repeat this error quietly. They think leadership means always being decisive, always visible, always firm. They forget that authority, when overused, loses weight. If you correct every small fault, your correction means little when the great fault arrives. If you speak loudly at all times, your silence no longer carries fear. The lion roars so often that the forest stops listening. Machiavelli did not despise the lion. He warned against becoming only the lion. Because the world is not made only of enemies that flee at strength. It is made of rivals who wait. The lion's rule invites a question that grows louder with time. What happens if he stumbles? And once that question is asked, power has already begun to slip. The wise observer learns something difficult here. Sometimes restraint preserves strength. Sometimes absence sharpens authority. Sometimes not striking is the strike. But the lion, proud of his claws, struggles to learn this. He believes mercy is weakness. He believes silence is surrender. He believes subtlety belongs to lesser men. And so, slowly, the foxes gather. Not openly, not boldly, quietly. They form alliances the lion never sees. They plant doubts where the lion expects obedience. They wait for the one moment when the lion must show his hand, and cannot. This is how strong rulers fall. Not by force alone, but by exposure. If you are always the lion, you will eventually be surrounded by foxes. And they will not challenge you where you are strong. They will wait for where you are blind. In the next part, we will step into the shadows and watch the fox at work. Not as a hero, not as a villain, but as a survivor who understands what the lion does not. Because what you learn next may protect you from becoming powerful and alone. What happens next decides whether your strength rules the room or merely announces where you stand. Number 2, the fox who survived without a crown. There is another creature that walks through the courts of power. It does not roar. It does not strike first. It is rarely noticed. Yet, it endures. Niccolò Machiavelli, a sharp observer of human nature and power, paid close attention to such figures. They were not always kings. Often, they were advisors, merchants, envoys, or minor nobles. Men with no armies, no crowns, sometimes not even respect. But they survived when stronger men vanished. This was the fox. There was once a city ruled by many voices. No single ruler held full command. Power shifted between councils, guilds, and families. Decisions were slow, alliances fragile. Public strength mattered less than private influence. In this city lived a man with no title. He owned no soldiers. He made no speeches. He punished no one. Yet when decisions were made, his interests were always protected. When conflicts arose, he remained untouched. When rulers fell, he remained. He learned early what the lion never accepts. Open strength invites resistance. Quiet influence invites dependence. The fox studied people the way others studied weapons. He listened more than he spoke. He watched who envied whom. He noticed who needed favors and who feared exposure. He understood that most power does not move through commands. It moves through needs. Machiavelli saw this clearly. People obey force when they must, but they follow those who make themselves necessary. The fox never confronted authority directly. When a ruler announced a harsh decree, the fox did not object. He visited the merchants who would suffer. He whispered solutions that required his involvement. He shaped outcomes without appearing to oppose power. The lion commands. The fox redirects. In modern life, this fox is familiar. It is the colleague who knows everyone but challenges no one openly. The leader who lets others take credit while shaping the plan. The person who seems harmless until you realize how much depends on them. The fox understands a dangerous truth. Visibility is optional. Influence is not. While the lion spends strength to maintain order, the fox invests patience to shape it. But cunning alone carries its own risks. Machiavelli did not glorify the fox. He warned of its limits. The fox avoids traps, yes, but cannot frighten wolves. The fox survives chaos, yes, but cannot command loyalty in crisis. In the city, the fox thrived during uncertainty. But when war threatened the walls, the people turned not to whispers, but to strength. Cunning protects. It does not rule by itself. This is where many modern leaders misunderstand subtlety. They believe manipulation is wisdom. They believe silence is intelligence. They believe avoiding conflict is mastery. But the fox who never shows strength becomes invisible when strength is required. The fox in the city faced this moment. A foreign army approached. Fear spread. Councils argued. Merchants fled. Suddenly, quiet influence meant nothing. The people wanted certainty. They wanted protection. The fox had information. He had connections. But he had no authority to act. The lion stepped forward. Machiavelli would have smiled grimly at this scene. He saw that the fox who refuses ever to bare his teeth will always need a lion nearby. And the lion who refuses cunning will always be surrounded by foxes. The lesson here is not to choose one over the other. It is to understand timing. The fox survives because he does not rush. He waits for others to expose themselves. He allows rivals to overreach. In leadership, this means something uncomfortable. Not every injustice must be corrected immediately. Not every insult deserves a response. Not every threat requires confrontation. Sometimes, allowing events to unfold reveals who your enemies truly are. The fox allows others to speak, and in speaking, they reveal themselves. Machiavelli observed that men often destroy their own positions when given enough rope. The fox simply holds the rope. In modern power structures, the fox excels where rules are unclear and alliances shift. He thrives in transition, in uncertainty, in moments when no one knows who truly holds control. But he must never forget this. If no one fears you at all, they will eventually step on you. Cunning without the shadow of strength invites disrespect. The fox must sometimes remind others that he is not prey. This reminder does not need to be loud. It needs to be credible. A single decisive act, a quiet consequence, a door that closes forever. The best foxes choose their moments carefully. They strike once, then disappear again. In leadership, this means understanding that reputation is built not on constant action, but on rare, unforgettable action. Those who act all the time are studied. Those who act rarely are remembered. The fox who survives longest is the one who is underestimated until it is too late. Yet this path has a final danger. The fox who never stands openly will never be followed openly. People trust strength in moments of fear. They admire cleverness only when safe. Machiavelli understood that to rule, not merely survive, one must combine both natures. But before that union can exist, the leader must first understand each side deeply. You have now seen how strength exposes itself and how cunning hides. In the next part, we will confront the most dangerous mistake of all, the leader who tries to be kind in a world that studies weakness, because what comes next is where many fall. Not by cruelty, but by mercy offered at the wrong time. And when that mistake is made, removal is no longer a question of if, only how quietly. Number 3, the cost of mercy when power is young. There is a moment in every rise to power that feels sacred. It is the moment when authority is new, when followers are hopeful, when the future still seems open. This is the moment when many leaders choose mercy. Niccolò Machiavelli, a sharp observer of human nature and power, watched this moment with suspicion. Not because mercy is evil, but because it is often offered too early, to the wrong people, and without cost. There was once a new ruler who inherited a troubled city. The previous ruler had fallen suddenly. Old wounds remained. Rival families still remembered past victories and humiliations. The city was calm on the surface, but the foundations were cracked. The new ruler wanted unity. He spoke of peace. He forgave old offenses. He allowed former enemies to keep their positions. The people praised his kindness. But kindness, when unguarded, teaches a lesson. It teaches others that consequences are negotiable. Machiavelli saw this error many times. When power is young, it is studied more carefully than when it is old. Every act becomes a signal. Every pardon becomes a promise. The new ruler believed mercy would earn loyalty. Instead, it bought time for his rivals. Those he forgave did not become grateful. They became patient. They smiled in public. They met in private. They waited for mercy to become habit. Mercy, repeated without strength, becomes expectation. In modern leadership, this mistake is common. A new manager wants to be liked. A new leader wants harmony. A person in a new position avoids difficult decisions to show fairness. At first, the atmosphere improves. Later, standards blur. People test limits quietly. Deadlines stretch. Disrespect hides behind politeness. The leader believes generosity builds loyalty. But Machiavelli understood a hard truth. Loyalty is built on clarity, not kindness. The city ruler learned this too late. One faction broke a law openly. He forgave them. Another challenged his authority subtly. He ignored it. Soon, mercy became weakness in the eyes of the ambitious. Not because mercy is weak, but because it was unprotected. In courts and councils, mercy must be framed by fear. Without that frame, it collapses. The people began to speak. They said, "He is good." They did not say, "He is firm." Goodness alone does not defend a throne. Machiavelli observed that fear, when measured, creates boundaries. Mercy, when unmeasured, dissolves them. The ruler still believed in goodness, but goodness had already become his reputation. And reputation, once set, is difficult to reverse. Those who wished him harm no longer feared punishment. They feared only exposure. And exposure can be managed. In modern life, this appears quietly. The leader who never enforces rules is not respected for fairness. He is studied for weakness. The leader who forgives every mistake does not inspire gratitude. He invites carelessness. The problem is not mercy. The problem is timing. Machiavelli would say this moment requires the lion first. Before mercy can be trusted, strength must be undeniable. Before forgiveness, there must be certainty. In the city, the ruler attempted to correct his mistake. He punished a small offense harshly, hoping to restore balance. But now his mercy had already trained the city. The punishment felt sudden, unfair, even cruel. Consistency had been lost. This is another quiet danger. Mercy without discipline makes discipline look like betrayal. The ruler's people no longer knew what to expect. Uncertainty replaced trust. And in uncertainty, foxes thrive. They whispered that the ruler was unstable, that his kindness was false, that his strength appeared only when it was safe. Machiavelli saw this pattern often. Once mercy is mistaken for weakness, reclaiming authority requires far more force than would have been needed at the beginning. What could have been settled with clarity now demanded severity. The wise leader understands this early. Mercy must be rare at first, predictable later. Punishment must be firm at first, measured later. This order matters. In leadership, the early days define the future. If boundaries are soft at the beginning, they will be broken forever. If they are clear, mercy later feels like generosity, not surrender. The city ruler lost his advantage because he wanted peace before order. Peace does not create order. Order allows peace. Machiavelli did not despise kindness. He warned that kindness without strength is a promise you cannot keep. In modern leadership, this lesson is uncomfortable. You may wish to be humane, you may wish to be fair, you may wish to be admired, but admiration does not protect you when tested. Respect does. And respect is born from consistency, not compassion alone. As the ruler's authority weakened, he faced a final truth. The city no longer feared him, and those who do not fear consequences begin to imagine removal. This is where many leaders fall, not because they were cruel, but because they were kind at the wrong moment. In the next part, we will explore what happens when leaders try to rule through love alone, and why affection, when chased, turns into contempt. Because what comes next is the most seductive trap of all. And once you step into it, you may not even realize power has already left your hands. Number 4. When love becomes a chain around the throne, there is a desire more dangerous than cruelty. It is the desire to be loved. Niccolò Machiavelli, a sharp observer of human nature and power, noticed that rulers often spoke of love as if it were solid ground. They believed affection could replace authority. They believed gratitude would endure hardship. They believed goodwill would defend them when storms arrived. History taught him otherwise. There was once a ruler who governed a prosperous city. He lowered taxes. He listened patiently. He praised openly. The people admired him. They spoke his name warmly. His court was calm. His streets were full. The ruler believed he had discovered a safer path than fear. But love is a fragile bond. It lasts only while conditions remain favorable. When the harvest failed, the city changed. Food grew scarce. Prices rose. Anger searched for a target. The ruler had not changed, but affection had. Machiavelli understood this danger well. Love is given freely, and taken back just as freely. It belongs to the people, not the ruler. Fear, when controlled, belongs to authority. The ruler called meetings. He explained circumstances. He asked for patience. The people listened, but did not obey. Love did not carry them through hardship. Expectation did. They had grown used to kindness. They now demanded it. When the ruler could no longer give, affection turned to disappointment. Disappointment turned to blame. The ruler was confused. He had done everything right. He had been generous. He had been just. But justice does not calm hunger, and generosity cannot defeat panic. In modern leadership, this appears in quieter forms. A leader builds a friendly culture, avoids conflict, values harmony above clarity. People feel comfortable. But comfort dulls discipline. When difficult decisions arrive, cuts, changes, pressure, the same people feel betrayed. The leader asks, "Why do they turn on me?" Machiavelli would answer calmly, because love was never a contract. Affection depends on benefit. Authority depends on structure. The ruler in the city learned another harsh lesson. Love makes demands. The more you give, the more is expected. The moment you stop, resentment fills the space where gratitude once lived. This is why love, pursued as a foundation of power, becomes a chain. The ruler could no longer act freely. Every decision was weighed against popularity. Every necessary hardship felt like a personal failure. Power slowed. Indecision spread. Foxes sensed the shift. They whispered that the ruler had changed, that he no longer cared, that he was no longer the man they loved. Love, once turned, sharpens knives more quietly than hatred. Machiavelli observed that rulers who depend on affection become prisoners of it. They hesitate to act. They fear disapproval more than danger. Fear, when measured, gives freedom. Love, when chased, takes it away. The ruler attempted to regain affection. He promised relief he could not deliver. He delayed decisions. He avoided firmness. Each delay deepened doubt. The city grew restless. Here is the hidden truth. People admire strength even when it causes pain. They despise weakness even when it tries to please them. The ruler had mistaken applause for loyalty. In leadership, applause is fleeting. Structure endures. Machiavelli did not advise cruelty for its own sake. He warned against dependence on emotion. Love is unstable because it rests on feeling. Power must rest on expectation. Expectation can be shaped. Feeling cannot be commanded. The ruler finally enforced harsh measures to save the city. But now the people felt betrayed. They said, "He used to be kind." They did not say, "He must do this." The moment to be firm had passed. This is the cost of ruling through affection alone. When hardship arrives, love evaporates. But authority, if built correctly, remains. In modern life, this means something difficult. If people only respect you when things are easy, they do not truly respect you. If your leadership depends on approval, it will collapse under pressure. Machiavelli understood that a wise ruler allows affection to exist, but never relies on it. Love may follow good leadership. It must never replace it. In the next part, we will examine a subtler danger, the leader who avoids conflict so well that conflict eventually finds him unprepared. Because what happens next is not rebellion, it is erosion. And erosion removes power without noise, until nothing remains to defend. Part 5. The quiet erosion of authority. Power rarely falls in a single blow. More often it fades. Niccolò Machiavelli, a sharp observer of human nature and power, understood that the most dangerous losses are invisible. A throne may stand untouched while authority drains away, drop by drop, until only the shape of power remains. There was once a ruler known for balance. He was neither cruel nor weak, neither loud nor silent. He avoided extremes. His city ran smoothly. Conflicts were settled quietly. No open enemies challenged him. From the outside, his rule appeared stable. Inside, something was slipping. The ruler avoided confrontation whenever possible. When disputes arose, he delayed decisions. When factions argued, he sought compromise. When warnings came, he asked for more time. He believed calm meant control. Machiavelli would have recognized the danger immediately. Avoiding conflict does not remove it. It relocates it. The city's tensions did not disappear. They moved underground. Rivals learned that persistence, not rebellion, was enough. Officials learned that rules bent when pressure was applied long enough. The people learned that authority was negotiable. The ruler still sat on the throne. But fewer listened. This is erosion. Not loud, not dramatic, relentless. In modern leadership, this erosion is common. A leader postpones difficult conversations, lets small violations pass to keep peace, chooses comfort over clarity. At first, nothing breaks. Later, everything softens. Deadlines lose meaning. Standards blur. Consequences fade. Authority becomes a suggestion. Machiavelli observed that power depends not only on action, but on belief. People must believe that decisions will be enforced. Once that belief weakens, no decree restores it easily. The ruler noticed signs. Orders took longer to obey. Requests required repetition. Respect became polite, not firm. But because there was no open defiance, he ignored the signs. Silence fooled him. Silence is not loyalty, it is calculation. Foxes thrive in silence. They encouraged delays. They praised patience. They spoke of stability while hollowing it out. Each compromise made sense alone. Together they dismantled authority. The ruler believed flexibility showed wisdom. Machiavelli would have warned him. Flexibility without limits invites testing. People push gently at first, then harder. They do not intend rebellion. They intend advantage. Over time, the ruler lost something crucial: the power to say no. Every refusal required explanation. Every decision required consensus. Every act of firmness caused surprise. Surprise is a sign of weakness. When authority is healthy, firmness is expected. The city changed. Councils debated endlessly. Officials acted independently. The ruler became a coordinator, not a commander. Still, no one removed him. That was the illusion. Machiavelli knew that removal is often the final act, not the first. First comes irrelevance. The ruler's presence mattered less. His absence mattered little. This is the moment power truly ends. In modern life, leaders reach this point quietly. They still hold titles, still attend meetings, still sign papers. But decisions are made elsewhere. Influence has shifted. Erosion is dangerous because it feels peaceful. There is no crisis to demand action, no enemy to confront, only slow decline. The ruler finally attempted to assert authority. He enforced an old rule strictly. He dismissed a disobedient official. The city reacted with shock. They said he had changed. They said he had become harsh. But he had not changed. Expectations had. Machiavelli observed that when firmness disappears for too long, its return feels like tyranny. The ruler faced resistance, not because he was wrong, but because he was late. This is the cost of avoiding conflict. Conflict avoided does not vanish. It accumulates. An accumulated conflict demands higher payment later. The wise leader confronts small issues early, decisively, calmly, not to dominate, but to signal boundaries. Boundaries, once established, protect peace. The ruler had sought peace without boundaries. He found quiet decay instead. In leadership, there is a moment when saying no preserves authority far better than endless accommodation. Machiavelli would say that strength unused does not remain neutral. It weakens. If you do not exercise authority, others will. As the ruler's influence faded, a new force began to rise. Not a rebellion, not an enemy, but a coalition of those who sense the vacuum. In the next part, we will see how power behaves when it senses emptiness, and why hesitation invites replacement. Because when authority hesitates too long, the question is no longer whether someone will step forward, but who will do it first. Number 6, when power senses emptiness. Power is like water. It flows toward open space. Niccolò Machiavelli, a sharp observer of human nature and power, understood that authority abhors a vacuum. When leadership hesitates, when decisions slow, when certainty fades, something always moves in to fill the gap. There was once a city with a ruler who still wore the crown. But his presence no longer shaped events. Orders were issued, but interpreted freely. Warnings were spoken, but negotiated. The throne existed, but power drifted. This was not chaos. It was opportunity. Machiavelli would have recognized the moment immediately. When power becomes unclear, ambition awakens. In the city, ambitious men did not speak of overthrow. They spoke of helping. They offered solutions. They gathered followers quietly. They said, "The ruler is tired." They said, "The city needs guidance." They said, "We act in his name." Each word sounded loyal. Each action replaced him. This is how power moves without violence. The ruler noticed new figures rising. They chaired councils he once led. They spoke on behalf of the city. They resolved conflicts before reaching him. He felt relief. He believed delegation was working. Machiavelli would have warned him. Delegation without oversight becomes displacement. The ruler mistook usefulness for loyalty. In modern leadership, this pattern is familiar. A leader grows hesitant. Others step up. At first, it seems helpful. Later, it becomes permanent. Influence shifts quietly. People begin to ask others for approval. Decisions are shaped before reaching the leader. Authority becomes ceremonial. The ruler tried to reassert himself. He summoned the rising figures. He reminded them of their place. They smiled. They agreed. Nothing changed. Power, once relocated, resists return. Machiavelli observed that those who fill a vacuum rarely admit they have done so. They present themselves as guardians, not challengers. They claim necessity. And necessity is a powerful excuse. The city began to operate without the ruler. Not officially, but effectively. This is the most dangerous stage. There is no enemy to strike, no crime to punish, only absence where command should be. The ruler felt anger. He considered force. But force now carried risk. He no longer knew who stood with him. This is another hard truth Machiavelli understood. When authority is uncertain, strength becomes dangerous. Strike too hard, and you confirm fear. Strike too softly, and you confirm weakness. The moment for easy correction had passed. The ambitious figures now had allies, support, legitimacy. They spoke of stability, of continuity, of serving the city. They did not need the ruler removed. They needed him irrelevant. In modern life, leaders experience this quietly. They are still respected, still consulted, but no longer decisive. Decisions happen before they arrive. Their approval is assumed. Power has moved. Machiavelli saw that emptiness invites not the strongest, but the most alert. Foxes sense space faster than lions. They move into it carefully. They appear helpful. They grow roots. By the time the lion notices, the ground is no longer his. The ruler realized his authority depended now on a single act. He could confront openly, or retreat completely. Both paths were dangerous. This is the price of delay. Had he acted earlier, firmness would have been accepted. Now, it would be resisted. Machiavelli would say the lesson is cruel but clear. Power must be exercised to exist. Unused authority is not saved. It is spent by others. In leadership, hesitation invites substitution. If you do not define direction, someone else will. If you do not decide, others will decide for you. The city approached a turning point. The ruler could sense it. Whispers grew louder. Confidence shifted away from him. He was still on the throne, but the throne no longer commanded. In the next part, we will confront the most difficult skill of all, knowing when to strike once, decisively to reclaim authority, and when to let power pass without resistance. Because what happens next is not about strength or cunning alone. It is about timing. And timing decides whether a ruler returns or becomes a memory while still alive. Number 7, the single strike that restores order. There comes a moment when delay is no longer wisdom. It is surrender. Niccolò Machiavelli, a sharp observer of human nature and power, understood that power, once weakened, can still be reclaimed, but only through precision, not with noise, not with excess, with a single, unmistakable act. There was once a ruler whose authority had thinned. He was not hated. He was not feared. He was simply bypassed. Advisors spoke before he did. Decisions formed without his consent. His presence closed no arguments. The city still called him ruler. But power had moved elsewhere. Machiavelli would have said that at this stage, half measures are fatal. Small punishments invite defiance. Long speeches invite doubt. Warnings invite preparation. If authority is to return, it must return suddenly. The ruler studied the city. He did not act in anger. He did not announce intent. He watched who spoke with confidence, who gathered support, who assumed command without permission. He waited, not from fear, but from calculation. This waiting was different from hesitation. It was preparation. The ruler chose one figure, not the loudest, not the strongest, but the one whose removal would change behavior. This is an important lesson. To restore authority, you do not strike many. You strike the symbol. Machiavelli understood that people learn from examples more than from laws. One decisive act teaches more than 100 warnings. The ruler summoned the chosen figure. There was no debate, No explanation. The figure was removed from position, publicly, calmly. No cruelty, no spectacle, only certainty. The city paused. Others waited to see what would happen next. Nothing did. The ruler returned to silence. This silence was different. It was heavy. Machiavelli observed that fear works best when it is restrained. When punishment is rare, it is remembered. The ruler did not chase others. He did not threaten. He did not boast. He allowed imagination to work. Those who had grown bold now reconsidered. Those who had filled the vacuum stepped back, not because they were attacked, but because the rules had returned. In modern leadership, this lesson is difficult. Leaders often overcorrect. They punish widely. They explain endlessly. They justify themselves. This weakens the message. A single, fair, decisive action does more than constant enforcement. The ruler had reclaimed something important. Not dominance, expectation. People now knew boundaries existed. Machiavelli would say this is the moment authority becomes credible again. But this act carried risk. If it failed, the ruler would be exposed. If it succeeded, balance would return. This is why timing matters. Strike too early and you appear cruel. Strike too late and you appear desperate. The ruler had waited just long enough. The city adjusted. Meetings shortened. Orders were followed. Silence returned to places where debate had grown wild. Power had not become absolute. It had become clear. Yet Machiavelli would warn that this moment is not the end. Force used too often will erode trust. Cunning used too often will erode belief. The ruler had used the lion once. Now he had to remember the fox. The greatest danger after restoring authority is pride. The belief that strength alone will now suffice. Machiavelli understood that authority regained must be maintained quietly. The ruler returned to subtlety. He allowed others to act within limits. He listened without surrendering. He rewarded loyalty discreetly. The strike had restored order. Wisdom would preserve it. In leadership, this means knowing that decisive moments are rare. Use them sparingly. Use them clearly. Never waste them. Because each decisive act shapes reputation. And reputation determines how often you must act again. In the next and final part, we will unite the lion and the fox. We will reveal when to show strength and when to disappear. Because survival is not enough. The final question is whether you rule your circumstances or merely endure them until they change you. Number 8, the ruler who knew when to be seen and when to vanish. There is a final lesson that separates those who hold power briefly from those who shape their age. It is not strength alone. It is not cunning alone. It is judgment. Niccolò Machiavelli, a sharp observer of human nature and power, understood that the highest form of leadership is not constant action, but correct transformation. The ruler who survives longest is the one who knows when to change his nature without hesitation. There was once a ruler remembered not for conquest, but for endurance. He ruled through war and peace, through loyalty and betrayal, through fortune and disaster. Those who watched him could not define him. At times, he was unyielding, at times invisible. This confusion was his shield. He understood something few do. People cannot prepare against what they cannot predict. When threats were open, he became the lion. He acted swiftly, decisively, without apology. Punishment was certain. Resistance short-lived. The city learned that when danger showed its face, so did his strength. But when threats were hidden, when rivals whispered and alliances shifted, he vanished into the fox. He spoke less, listened more, allowed others to reveal themselves. He did not chase shadows. He let ambition step into the light. Machiavelli saw in such rulers the union of two natures. The lion protects power. The fox preserves it. One without the other invites destruction. Strength without cunning becomes predictable. Cunning without strength becomes disposable. The ruler never announced his approach. He allowed others to believe they understood him. This belief was false, and false certainty is more dangerous than ignorance. In modern life, this wisdom remains unchanged. The leader who is always firm becomes rigid. The leader who is always flexible becomes weak. The wise leader shifts. When clarity is needed, they provide it. When silence is useful, they keep it. When action must be taken, they act once and are remembered. This is not deception for its own sake. It is adaptation. Machiavelli understood that the world does not reward consistency of behavior. It rewards consistency of results. The ruler never clung to one identity. He was not committed to being feared. He was not committed to being loved. He was committed to remaining. This is the truth many resist. Power is not a moral contest. It is a contest of survival. Those who insist on purity fall first. The ruler allowed affection to exist, but never depended on it. He allowed fear to exist, but never abused it. He balanced both like a blade. When strength had spoken, he softened. When softness was mistaken, he hardened. The city learned something important. They could not predict his response, but they could trust its purpose. This is the highest form of authority. Not chaos, not terror. Certainty without transparency. Machiavelli would have approved. Because the ruler had learned the final truth, people do not remove leaders who make them feel safe in uncertainty. They remove leaders who expose themselves too clearly. The lion must roar rarely. The fox must hide often. When both are mastered, power becomes quiet, and quiet power endures. You now hold the mirror. Ask yourself, not who you are, but who you become when the moment demands it. Because the world does not care what nature you prefer. It only responds to what you choose to be when it tests you. And when that moment arrives, there will be no time to decide. You will either step forward with the right face or disappear while still standing. Most people will watch this and move on. They will remain unchanged. If you are not one of them, subscribe. This channel is not for motivation. It is for those who prefer awareness over comfort. Like the video if you recognize the value of quiet power. Comment only if you are ready for the next level. What comes next is not explained twice.